Bernadine sits intermediate school. Stuco, lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll take 30 seconds for a silent reflection. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the agenda following amendments. C1, add item H2, new business. The Board of Education is asked to consider and approve a real land purchase of property at 2401 East Mary Street, Garden City, Kansas. This land borders Garden City High School. C2, additional certified personnel actions for considerations, item F3A.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda with the following amendments. Is there any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Move on to a building presentation. Our Bernadine sits in a meeting.
All right, so my name's Brad Hill. I think I've met pretty much everybody here, but I'm gonna let the Stuco kind of run most of the show, and then I have a little piece at the end, kind of talking about our referrals, discipline, and then some of the positive things that are going on at Bernadine Sits. But our Stuco representatives, Mrs. Suderman and Mrs. Barr, and then I also have our instructional coach, Mrs. Wadle, is going to give some data information, and then Mrs. Figs is the assistant principal / TOSA, both buildings. So I'll give it over to them for a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Thank you for letting our Stuco members present to you this evening. I believe that we have a record-breaking Stuco club this year. We have about 30 members, and with that, they had to create their own presentations, go before their peers. They had to be voted into Stuco. There were 2 allowed for homeroom, and we felt it was really important this year to show the importance of holding an office and how to hold a proper meeting like we are this evening. So we decided to go ahead and do officer elections within our Stuco club. So again, they had to do presentations for their Stuco peers only and then be voted into office. We have 5 officers, and with that, we practice parliamentary procedure once a month with our students. And then we hold meetings for our entire Stuco club weekly, and there we discuss upcoming events and things that we want to do for our school and community there. So, Mrs. Suderman, would you like to introduce them?
Of course. Good evening, and thank you guys again for allowing us to share what is happening at BSIC. I'd like to introduce our 5 Stuco officers. Our reporter is 5th grader Bryson Owens. Our treasurer is 6th grader Danilo Del Toro. Our secretary is 6th grader Kaylee Merez. Our vice president is 6th grader Jaylene Campos, and our president is 5th grader Lucy Barr, and they're going to share information for you tonight.
Our vision at BSIC, all students will become lifelong learners for a better tomorrow. Our mission, empowering excellence today and tomorrow. Our motto, pride. P, preparation. R, respect. I, integrity. E, determination. E, for excellence.
During Good Start, where CKH is all about teaching us students how to better interact with our peers and the teachers. We have lessons on respect, kindness, empathy, teamwork, and many other great character traits. We also create a social contract at the beginning of the year that tells us how we want to be treated and how we should treat our classmates and teachers. We also do positive affirmations where we write a positive note to a peer or teacher in the building.
Stuco has done a lot of different things so far this year. In November, we did a can food drive with the whole school and collected cans for the Emmaus House. In December, we had the school collect socks and donate to the Family Crisis Service. We also had the local church give us socks to donate as well. We also have the school store, which is open once a week, and we sell items ranging from 10 cents to $5 for the students to buy. This is one of our biggest fundraisers. In December, we also did a winter door decorating contest and had the local firefighters and law enforcement come and judge them. One of our biggest school-wide things we do is decorate Christmas trees. Each team gets their own tree and the classes on each team get to decide how they want to decorate it. It always makes our lobby look so festive. We also put together a treat bag for the robotics students for their first competition and did a good luck on state morning starter for donuts and juice for them. Upcoming so far, we have donuts and juice for first responders. We will also be starting up the Bulldog Closet. The Bulldog Closet is gonna have different things ranging from toiletry items to clothes. So if students need any of these items, then they finally ask their teachers to go to the Bulldog Closet and they may grab whatever they need. Also, if the teacher notices a child may need something, they may also get it for them or help them get to the Bulldog Closet to get what they need. We are getting a clothes rack and hoping to get items donated from local stores or buy them with the money we raise to be able to start stocking it soon. BSIC Stuco has a lot of amazing things happening and that we are making happen.
BSIC also offers band, choir, and orchestra to all students. The students have the opportunity to learn a musical instrument and be able to put on a concert for their friends, family, and peers each semester.
Here at BSIC, our competitive robotics team consists of 23 students that have compiled into 7 teams with 2 coaches, Mrs. Farr and Mr. Coach Hill. 6 teams made of 19 earned a trip to finals held here in Garden City at the high school. Also, altogether, there were 23 teams competing at state, with only 3 teams advancing to Worlds held in Dallas, Texas. The first week of May, our BSIC team 91320E, my team, won state and will be the only Garden City team to compete at Worlds this year. This will be the 3rd consecutive year for the BSIC to attend Worlds. There's only 420 teams worldwide that get to go to Worlds out of about 35,000 robotics teams. That puts us in the top 7% of robotics teams.
So just to fill you guys in on robotics, for those of you that might not be as familiar with it, in the realm of intermediate school competitive robotics, students embark on a challenging yet thrilling journey that marries the intricacies of engineering with the spirit of competition. These contests designed for young minds in the formative years of 5th and 6th grade offer a unique platform where practical skills converge, fostering not only a deep understanding of mechanical, electrical, and software engineering, but also critical thinking, teamwork, and innovation. The process begins with conceptualization phase, where students, guided by their coaches, brainstorm ideas based on the competition's objectives. Next is the design and build phase, where ideas begin to take physical form. Here, students are introduced to a variety of tools and technologies. Programming the robot is equally critical. Students must write and program codes that control the robot's actions, a task that requires logical thinking and understanding of the principles of computer science. Teamwork is another cornerstone of competitive robotics. Students learn to work collaboratively, leveraging each team member's strengths to achieve a common goal. Communication, leadership, and project management skills are honed as the team navigates deadlines and divides tasks among its members. On the day of competition, the atmosphere is electric with anticipation and excitement. Teams gather in designated areas where their robots are put to the test. Success in competitions requires not only well-designed and programmed robots, but also the ability to adapt to strategies on the fly. The experience is exhilarating, often filled with moments of triumph and yet disappointment, all of which contribute to the learning journey. Beyond the technical skills, competitive robotics instills in students a sense of perseverance, creativity, and curiosity. It encourages them to think critically about the role of technology in society and inspires some to pursue careers in the STEM fields. In the end, while trophies and accolades are celebrated, the true reward lies in the lessons learned and the friendships forged in the heat of the competitions. Winning a state robotics competition and advancing to compete at the world level in competitive robotics is a feat that demands a blend of advanced technical skills, strategic thinking, exceptional teamwork, and innovative mindsets. We are beyond proud of all our robotic students and equally excited for our very own team to compete at Worlds. I'm sure that you will be hearing much more about us as we will be embarking in our fundraising journey very soon.
BSIC also provides the after-school program for students. The after-school program provides a snack and an exercise activity, a craft, and tutoring for any students that sign up to go. This is a good opportunity for out students to get any help they might need.
District Week number 2. 3rd through 12th grade teachers will focus on strong instruction and high expectations, resulting in a 10% increase in the number of students achieving level 3 important ELA, math, and science on the CAP assessment. BSIC Week. By May 2024, BSIC teachers will focus on strong instruction and high expectations, resulting in a 10% increase of students achieving levels 3 and 4 on the ELA, math, and science state assessment.
I would like to present to everyone our FastBridge growth data from fall to winter. We calculated our data based on students who made typical growth from fall to winter benchmark or aggressive growth, meaning they made greater gains than what was expected of them. And then we also calculated in students who may have made little to no growth, but are meeting benchmark already. So up here, you can see that our 5th grade A reading, our comprehensive data from fall to winter, we had 71% of those students make typical or aggressive growth, or were already on level. Our 5th grade auto reading, this is more of like the phonics skills. They also look at like synonyms, they look at morphology, things like that. And we had 74% of our students from fall to winter in 5th grade on the auto reading screener make typical or aggressive growth. We're already on grade level. For 6th grade A reading, we had 72% of our students make typical or aggressive growth. We're already on grade level. And for 6th grade auto reading, we had 80% of our students make typical or aggressive growth or are already on level. Yep, go ahead and do the next one as well. So we started implementing the UFly phonics intervention in our building this year for students needing additional support with their phonics skills. And this is some data that we calculated from fall to winter. 48% of those students in UFly interventions made typical or aggressive growth. On the auto reading screener, we had 69% of students in UFly interventions make typical or aggressive growth from fall to winter on the A reading screener. And we had 16 students move up from our UFly interventions group to a fluency intervention, and then even a few that moved on to a vocabulary and comprehension intervention. So we're very excited about
that in our building. I also wanted to share just a few other things amongst our students, what they're doing in our building, and our teachers. So our students are reading complex grade level text, they're citing evidence, explaining their thinking, and writing to synthesize their understanding of the text. Our teachers believe our students can, and they hold them to those high expectations. To give just a few examples, all teachers in our building this year have spent a great amount of time in PLCs and their plan time to implement close reading practices. For example, our art teacher paired text about self-portraits, and students' final exam was to create a self-portrait. In PE, our teachers are pairing text from a resource called Pebble Go that we're using in our building and other credible sources when they're beginning a new unit. So our PE department just started a basketball unit, and students had to pick an article to read about a famous basketball player and share what they learned about the person's journey to fame, whether it be hard work, practice, dedication, good sportsmanship, or something else. In our STEM lab, students are using the scientific method and then creating presentations to share their findings. So citing evidence there as well. And in math, our students are reading and making sense of math application problems and solving those and sharing their thinking. And then of course, our ELA science and social studies classes are also using text to support students with gaining a deeper meaning and understanding of what they're reading. So our staff, to conclude at BSIC this year, has worked extremely hard to engage, empower, and enrich our students. Staff have worked collectively to implement best practice and have high expectations to support student growth in our building. So go Bulldogs. Thank you.
All right, so we have quarterly celebrations, behavior celebrations, students that have 0 referrals. So the difference, kind of like an FYI, is just kind of like a warning. A referral would be something a little bit more, a little major. So last year, for the full school year, there was 890 FYIs and referrals. From February 1st, we were at 269. So the first 2 behavior celebrations, we had 90 to 93% of students qualify. And then right now for the behavior celebration on Friday, we're at about 94%. I don't want to jinx it, there's still a couple days left, but hopefully we can get a lot of students. And then those behavior celebrations, those are like this Friday, they're going to have activities, snacks, scooter races. They just kind of have some fun and they do those different activities. And then last December, they played bingo and everybody got prizes. And, you know, that's just, I think the culture at Bernadine Sits, we have, part of that is capturing kids' hearts where the positive relationships, teachers and staff go above and beyond, doing a great job building those positive relationships, being present in the hallways, greeting students. I don't know if you could hear them, the positive affirmations. They do have a social contract. So the students come up with how they want to be treated, how the teacher's going to treat them. It's a two-way street. They kind of agree upon it. And then we do that as a staff. So the teachers and we come up with the same social contract, you know, what kind of words, not just respect, but how we're going to act in staff meetings and those type of things as well. So we just kind of like practice what you preach. We don't just tell them to do that. You know, we're kind of embodied and we do all the capturing kids' hearts in our building as well. And then that's just a graph. You can kind of look at the breakdown of kind of where the discipline and the referrals are coming. You know, sometimes you hear a lot, you know, there's a lot of bullying or there's a lot of fighting. And, you know, we have very few referrals that pertain to that kind of stuff. We have great counselors. Like I said, we have really good positive relationships in the building that we just kind of build on those things and we kind of have that positive atmosphere. So we try to give everybody a good experience. 5th and 6th grade, I know, is a tricky age. We're still a little bit elementary, but getting ready for middle school. You know, there's a wide range of students and their development in 5th and 6th grade. So we try to incorporate all of that into the 5th and 6th grade centers. So I think that's it. Do you guys have any questions for these guys? Or me? I guess.
Kind of have some of the all broke out. But I was curious what some of the positive referrals would be. You have some of the negative ones or some of those.
Yeah.
But what would be some things that your students get rewarded for, get a referral for being positive?
Yeah, so like a couple of them, the lunch ladies and the custodian clean the tables. We kind of have some kids that have kind of taken upon themselves. They help the custodians. They pull up the tables, they push them out of the way because our cafeteria is also the gym. So it's kind of a short period of time to get those cleaned up. So doing that, you know, if I know one of them, a kid fell and all of his stuff went everywhere. Teachers saw, you know, 3 or 4 students came, they helped him pick up his stuff. And then I know there's some where just like, they're just going above and beyond, helping their classmates. Some of those kids that, you know, are struggling, and then their classmates see that and they go over and help them. Those type of things like that. There's a wide range of positive referrals. We try to get some of those students too that don't always get any, you know, positive, and give them small little things that they accomplish so that way we can build them up.
The 16 students that moved up from U-Fly interventions to the fluency intervention, can you give me a little more detail what that means?
Sure. So in the stages of students learning to read, they start out at like phonemic awareness and phonics activities. And from there, they move up into, once they know how to use those phonics skills to decode, they move into a fluency group where they're practicing passages and working on fluency. So not reading too fast, not too slow, but at a just right pace. They're working on defining like vocabulary and just broadening their reading abilities. And then we also, from there, we even had some kiddos that jumped the like fluency phase and moved into working on vocabulary and comprehension. So a lot of those close reading practices that we've been putting into place. So it's really exciting when our kids not only continue to make expected growth, but that they move different tiers. And so a lot of students moved up from being like high risk to some risk through that process. Yeah.
That's kind of how we do our interventions. We use the FastBridge data, and then we place those kids, whether that be in, you know, U-Fly. We just started this year and we've seen some really promising things. And then all the way up to like the robotics, they meet every day, working on their robotic stuff. And that's part of their enrichment, those kids that are meeting all of those benchmarks.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Uh-oh.
The other day, I ran into someone that I know in the grocery store, and their grandkid goes to. They said, oh, well, you know, my grandkid, they've got some behavior issues, and let me tell you about your school. And I was like, you know, and they were like, Mr. Hill and his staff are fantastic. And so I was like, oh, that was so good to hear. So good job. I had to catch in my breath for a minute because they were like, let me tell you about your school. But it was all good.
So it's good to hear some positive.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Let them shake everybody's hand, then we can picture with you guys, if that's okay.
Okay, good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you. Good job. I know. There you go.
Very good. Thank you. Good. You see what it's been doing?
I shared with you tonight.
What to share with. Yeah, I know. You didn't come to see me about the reading, but yeah.
I'm never in back.
Hey, I'm getting there tight. You guys gotta scoot in there and tight, act like you like each other.
Get a school board behind them.
Yeah, scoot up. You guys scoot up.
And shorter than those guys. All right.
Scoot up. They're gonna come behind you. There you go.
We got it.
There we go.
All right, Buffalo's on three. 1, 2, 3.
Bulldog.
Hold on.
1, 2, 3.
Bulldogs.
Houston.
Yes, you don't get to see it. Yeah. Hey, guys, there's some pins right here. You guys want them?
That's
All good. Thank you guys. So bad.
Next, we'll move on to correspondence. No correspondence. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign. All right. Move on to unfinished business. We have a RSP update. RSP staff, Josh Garman and Drew Tucker.
Hi, good evening, board. So I'm coming back tonight to give you guys an update as where our boundary committee has been at for these past 2 meetings. If you remember, I presented the enrollment analysis and then asked for some more direction of how we're leading into that boundary process. And so we just want to come back and give you guys more of a status update of where that committee is at, and then seeing if there's more guidance you would like to provide the committee to kind of streamline future meetings and future recommendations. All right, so my name's Jenna Wallace. I've been the main consultant for all the meetings. So with my team back in Kansas City, I've led the past 2 boundary committee meetings. All right, so I'm going to be pretty brief tonight. I really am just going to kind of do a overview of our process recap. So give you guys a little taste of what the boundary committee has been talking about, results of their activities, and then leading into some potential revisions to the process that kind of where the committee's sitting at currently. All right, so if you remember this visual, this was the approved timeline for when we started this process. So we had our 2 initial board meetings leading into our clump of committee meetings, public input, 1 committee meeting at the end, and then the final board meeting in March or April. So what we're putting out here is 4 meetings with 1 public opportunity and 3 board meetings. So when we approved this process, when we set the stage for this whole committee conversation, it was coming back to adjusting that elementary boundary focus and seeing if there's ways to address those challenges that we saw in that original enrollment analysis projection. So that's what this process is reflecting here, where we would start with the committee with a couple meetings, 3 meetings leading up to that public input conversation, and then to narrow their recommendation and come back to you guys. And we have these different roles associated with all those colors. So just illustrating that in this process, in this collaborative effort, there's some things that the committee provides, there's information you guys provide, then my team, as well as public input. So all these combinations work together. And something that is in the balance of these different processes, depending on the different tasks and the different scope of the work, it has a different balance between these things. So with the boundary process in its original, you can see we had most of the meetings were the boundary committee with that one public input and coming back to you guys. Expanding different scope of tasks or diving in deeper may need a better balance of more public input, more board direction, and so forth. This first visual was something we talked a lot with the committee actually in our second meeting, which is the concept of ACE. So looking at something that wraps around this whole process, something we always come back to is this idea of when we look at boundaries and when we look at a long-term facility plan, we've got to make sure we're focusing on the lens of academics. So what is the student success measures that we are addressing in each plan? What is the culture? So how can we identify the culture of the buildings, the culture of the students and teachers relationship? And then our economics, that fiscal responsibility as the district as a whole, trying to make sure that every discussion we have, every item or question that I threw out to the committee, I hold it back to this lens of think about it in these three different lenses. This slide that goes through those initial guiding principles. So if you remember my meeting when I came here and we went through the boundary criteria, we also spent some time talking through this slide and trying to kind of get your guys' feedback over what do you want the guiding principles to be in this process. And if you remember, we kind of left it a little open-ended, right? We didn't make very strict bumpers. We didn't say, okay, here's the grade level change, here's what we want the two schools to be addressed. We left it a little bit open for the committee to work through the information and the data provided and see where that conversation leads them. So these are what our starting point guiding principles were with the process. We went through the different boundary criteria. So we had those 10 criteria that we asked some different persons to prioritize. So we talked with the staff, we talked with the principals, we talked with the cabinet. And then finally, at your meeting, went through that activity to prioritize our boundary criteria, which went into fiscal considerations, operational, students impacted in boundary change, and then projected enrollment, building utilization. So those were the top three criteria that came from you guys when we first started this process. So this first committee meeting that we had, it was a lot of the information I just gave you guys. I really set the stage with the committee and went through some of the high-level enrollment analysis. So we talked about what are the total demographic and census trends and student data trends that are leading to this enrollment projection of that decreasing enrollment. And then we went through each building and talked about the utilization of some facilities, utilization at the different grade levels, and where we do have the one challenge of overutilization and some different potential solutions, but all very high level. So when we came back and finished with our meeting one, we went through a series of polling activities, which was, I didn't hold anybody to their answer, but we just said, okay, at this point with the information presented, what do you think the boundary process should look at? Should we look at middle school boundaries? Should we look at intermediate? Should we look at elementary? And we got a consensus on support to analyze all those boundaries, as well as some other questions that lead into, should we consider challenges to overutilization and underutilization, as well as some grade configure changes questions. Would you consider analyzing a K6? Would you consider analyzing a K5? And so we can kind of pull this information out of the committee, which really led to coming in a meeting two, when we were saying, okay, this group of people are thinking bigger than just the basic boundary change. So that conversation came out just from the very initial enrollment analysis. Then moving into meeting two, we kind of took a step back as far as our approach of talking with the committee. We're saying of, okay, if we are, going down this pathway of looking at some bigger things than just a boundary change between some schools, we need to have a more comprehensive approach and really weigh out the different pros and cons of our current system and our potential changes. And really starting with the conversation of a grade configuration change, because that's kind of a tipping point where you have to have that first before you look at boundaries. You have to have that first before you look at what your staffing would be, what your curriculum would be. So what we went through in this meeting too is a SWOT analysis. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats of 3 different grade configuration options. So option 1 was stay the course, maintain the K4, K6, 5, 6, 7, 8 system. Option 2 was looking at if you made all your schools K6 and then 7, 8, 9, 12. And then option 3 was looking at a K5, 6, 8, 9, 12 model. So we had the committee go through the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats individually for each of those options. And this writing up here kind of illustrates some of that feedback between the options, where we talked about what is the strengths, kind of coming back to ACE. So what are the strengths academically, culturally, and then economically between all these 3 options? And I'll go to the next slide in a little bit so you can kind of zoom in on what their writing was. But after we went through all of the report outs with the committee, we asked them, okay, based on all this discussion and all the information you have, which grade configuration option would you most support? And we had consensus with everyone voting for option 3, which was the K5, 6, 8 model. So this was just a snapshot of the information that they were provided. So they looked at current enrollment, capacity, number of buildings, and then what would be needed to get to that 75-85% utilization. And here's this typed up responses from that messy kind of picture you guys saw a couple slides ago. So just typed up of the results of that SWOT analysis for option 3, where you can see these different strengths of a K5, 6, 8. There was a lot of conversation about 6th grade programming and the licensing needed to teach 6th grade and how working that with a middle school versus an elementary. There's some different challenges and some benefits of having 6th grade pulled into a 6-8 model, as well as so some staffing and recruitment. You can kind of read through those different strengths. And same as opportunities. This model definitely had the most opportunities and strengths out of the 3 options that we looked at, but not without its weaknesses and threats, right? So that's why fully vetting these options, understanding of, okay, if we look at our weaknesses and threat, some potential underutilization, some potential capacity, some things that we would want to work through and fully vet to make sure that if a potential switch happened, that these would be successful. So this is why we kind of came back tonight, and we want to bring this in front of you guys and try to just provide some more guidance to the committee. So knowing that where they're at right now is looking at more than just a boundary analysis, more than just a balance between Jenny Barker and one of the other elementary schools. So instead of a boundary process, calling this a reconfigure process of looking at a potential implementation of weighing those pros and cons of a K5, 6, 8 model, and then improving that target facility utilization. And I kind of put in those checkbox there some different goals of this. So trying to decrease the number of transitions. You'll see that a lot on the different feedback of the SWOT analysis of trying to go from, instead of 4 transitions, to 3 transitions for our students, as well as improving the recruitment of teachers, creating that equitable student experience with all the schools being that same grade configuration, and then utilizing our facilities at a more efficient rate, where we come back to that ACE concept of how that would boost academics, culture, and economics of the district. So the next thing on this slide here is just coming back. When we looked at that first slide of that first process and how I said, those would be the number of meetings targeted to look at a boundary change for next year implementation. If we go down this pathway of looking at a grade change, a potential reconfiguration of some schools, we would need to extend this process to expand for some more analysis. So we want to dig deeper into the pros and cons of academics of the grade configuration, make sure that we can staff it, as well as making sure it fits within our funding. So this kind of leads into what that extension would do. So then what we're proposing here is just a couple more meetings added to this process. So the visual on the left-hand side, that's your current process, and then looking at the new process. And so what these changes include are an additional committee meeting, public input pushed to April 16th and 17th. The board adoption in May instead of April. So really, just adding really one more committee meeting, but just extending the total timeline of the process to give more internal and external and my team more of that time between meetings to fully vet these different options, to work them through and making sure we have the most accurate data to come back to the committee and to the public to make sure that that recommendation moving forward meets all that criteria and we're not, missing things or being like, oh, we didn't think about that. We want to make sure that with the big recommendation, we have data to support everything. So that goes through my update, pretty high level, but I just want to, if there's any questions that you guys have about that process extension or potential committee recommendation.
You guys can ask us questions too. We were in the committees. I know Robin was there in the committees. It's kind of been a not a long process. It's been a lot, I guess. Probably the most difficult thing about the meetings that I've seen is just trying to nail down exactly what people want, I think has been quite the process. We've talked for a long time about reconfiguration. I mean, you guys have all been a part of and heard parts of the process on reconfiguration, starting all the way back in 2018. And I think after the last meeting, walking out of that last meeting, in all honesty, walking into the meeting, we were like, where's the committee going to land on all this? What are these community members going to think and say about the different options that are going to be available to them? And, I'll say I was surprised that everybody wanted to look at the actual grade reconfiguration. I think we've talked about it for a long time, and I think the committee, and the people that I've talked to, I think they're kind of tired of talking about it. And it seems like to me, it's to the point where people want to see if it can actually happen, and I don't think that there's, in my opinion, there's a whole bunch of different ways we can make K-5 and 6-8 look. I mean, we can skin a cat a whole bunch of different ways. So I think that just from a committee standpoint, from a community standpoint, those people, and Robin, you were there, you can kind of talk to it. It just seemed like to me that they just want to see us do something. They know that we've talked about it for a long time. It's been a conversation for a lot of years, even before we talked about reconfiguration. I think now it's just, can we actually make this thing happen?
And I think at the last board meeting, or at that last committee meeting, Andy and Nathan were also there.
Yeah.
So they might have something to say along those lines. But really just kind of getting to a point where giving the committee a little bit more of a directive of what you would like them to look at is really going to be beneficial so that they can take actions towards putting together those plans to develop those and bring them back to the board for those final presentations. So having the board really give that an outline where you'd like the committee to go will be really beneficial at this point.
Remind me again who's all on the committee. There's a lot of people, right?
Yeah, we have
57 total.
57 total members.
quite a few.
Parents, teachers, community members.
The 39 was a bit smaller because we had parent-teacher conferences during the last meeting. So not all 52 members were there because we lost some to those sorts of things. But I mean, Andy and Robin, you guys can kind of talk to it a little bit, probably as a board better than.
I wasn't sure what to expect because I had missed the first meeting. And so I was really surprised and impressed with the way that the meetings went. And I sat at a table with people that I didn't know really at all. I believe they were all teachers at the table that I was at. but the questions were very thought-provoking. We had great discussion. And it was very surprising when we would go around to each different table and people would voice what they said. And you're like, oh, those are exactly what we said. Oh, those are exactly what we said. And so sometimes our table didn't say anything because everyone else had already said everything that we said. And to have that many people from different walks of life have that much consensus was pretty surprising. And then when we put the dots on the paper, and I was like, there was a couple of people that I was really surprised because I felt from their comments, they weren't leaning towards that, but then everyone put their dot there and I was like, wow. I mean, that's a pretty strong statement, even for 40 people. You know, it wasn't the full 50 something, but 40 people consistently said, let's see what this looks like.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing to me. The biggest takeaway was just that I don't know that I've ever served on a committee where 100% of the people that were in the room all had the same opinion when we ended. So
I thought the SWOT analysis, because we did that on all three grade configuration models, our current K4, 5-6 model, K6 option, and the K5-6-8 option. And there were, like Rob said, there was good discussion on all of that. But I think as we went through that, at least for me, I think it really helped kind of bring to light why, you know, back in 2018, 2019, the grade reconfiguration study stated this, that the K5-6-8 model was the best option for our district moving forward. And just having all that input from everybody just reinforced that to me. So I think to me, overall, how this process has evolved just makes natural sense. You know, if we started out talking about boundaries, but as you said, grade reconfiguration, really kind of the first topic really needs to be discussed. And then in how that kind of evolves, I think it's healthy and we're taking the right path by taking this broad picture approach and how we're really looking forward to what's right for our district for the next 10, 20 years. So.
Yeah, I feel like it feels like it's kind of drug a little bit, but for good reason. You know, I don't think anybody thinks I think it's good that we're taking our time and making these decisions and coming to these conclusions. We did have the answers. I mean, I want to say we had the answers in 2020 when the thing was done, but it is nice to go back and just, COVID changed a lot of things for a lot of people. And to go back and just double check and make sure, hey, this is really the path that our community wants. This is the best path forward for our district. I think that this just brings light to it. And with that, there's a whole nother set of challenges now in front of us. And we understand that. And that's the next step to the process is figuring out, you know, now how do we attack those additional challenges?
And altering the timeline gives us that time, not only for RSP, but for the boundary committee, for leadership, to then go back to the drawing board and really vet out what options do we have and what are the impacts of those potential changes. So,
Well, Pastor Heck, you're online and you made both of the committee meetings. You want to make it?
Yeah, I was really impressed with the way that it's been handled. I have to say I was probably skeptical at first how it would all kind of play out. But I will say there's some community consensus. There were some people that were missing at the last meeting that I would like to have another meeting to be able to include them from another part of the segment of the community to make sure we have all the input as far as buy-in as we go forward. But for the most part, we have a good consensus, which it's been said that we definitely do have some. It's hard to find consensus, 100% consensus with anything in our world today. And we definitely have that, at least a positive start towards that. So I definitely agree. I think the other meetings are important. I think if we continue to look long range, it's definitely a good time to look at that and be able to make sure we do it right at this time. So I strongly encourage, I agree with their extended timeline.
Dr. Dominguez, did you attend both meetings as well?
I did.
Share a little of your thoughts.
Absolutely. Pastor and I were at both of them, as were the rest of the leadership team. The committee, it was a lot of discussion, a lot of great topics, but everybody got to give their point of view. So it was not myself, it was RSP driving any conversation one way or the other. Everybody had input, access and opportunity to say what they really felt. And at my table specifically, it started with, let's just change the boundary for Jenny Barker. But within 5 to 7 to 10 minutes, it went quickly to, that's really not addressing the problems we had. We've talked about this since 18, and my table is Garden City people that have been here, went to Horace Good when it was the high school and the whole, I mean, they've been here a long time. They're like, we've had these problems a long time. We need to go ahead and try to think larger and bigger than that. And that was not me having that. It wasn't RSP having that. It was the people at the table got there pretty quickly. Like it just can't be a boundary study because we're going to move this around and it's still going to keep growing over here. And it's really going to be, we're going to be in the same boat. We're just kicking the can, down the road. So can we look at doing something different in K-5 academics? And I mean, we've been in that, Josh, 20 years in that 5-6 model.
Been here 27 and been there that long.
Okay. So
1993.
So 30 years, that's a long time. And that was a model, and that was, I don't know that that's the best academic model now with the data. 30 years ago, I was just barely getting into education, so I don't know what the data said then, but it's definitely saying that's too many transitions. K-5 is 6, 7, 8 is a better model if you can make it work. And then obviously fiduciary duty, the ACE model, the academics, the culture, and the economics, if that can work, that the K-5, 6, 8 at least flesh that out, see what that looks like for us as a district and moving forward. So that was my lean on it. And like I said, I've been on all the meetings and all the conversations. So that was what I gathered from it.
I think my biggest takeaway from the whole thing was just the fact that, both of those committee meetings were 2 hours long, but I would say an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half was spent in small group discussions at your table, talking and problem solving, and then bringing that out to the whole group. RSP did a really good job of facilitating that conversation so that we could kind of talk and then look for common themes within the smaller groups as we progressed. And so that part was really good. It wasn't, just sitting and listening to them spew a bunch of data at us for 2 hours. It was, here's the data. Now, what do you think we should do with it? And really letting the committee have a voice in how to solve some of those issues.
And people were engaged the entire time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes at a 2-hour meeting, about, an hour and a half in, people are like this, and you can tell they're ready to go. And no one was like that. Everyone was like, let's stay till we get this answer. And that was refreshing.
You kind of mentioned it already, but that was a question I had. I guess professionally wise for the students, as an educator, what is the preferred model that's best for the student? Is it?
Well, the certification, I'll jump in for Drew. For HR, K-5 is, and then 6 and above is for a certification only. For an HR model, if you have those singletons, a 6th grade teacher, and Drew jump in on a 5-6 building, that makes it a little difficult because they can't service the 5 K-5 students because they only have a 6th grade certificate.
So the majority of licenses are a K-5 and then a 6-12, and the same with curriculum. The majority of curriculum is normally a K-5 curriculum and then a 6-12. As you guys get ready to adopt even more curriculum, one thing that we always have to consider is when we're adopting ELA curriculum, like you're going to be doing here for too long. Right now, we have to adopt one ELA curriculum for Charles Stone's as Bernadine sits, and then you have to go and adopt for the 5th grade, and then you have to go and adopt another curriculum for the 6th grade. So you lose that continuity when they're going from 5th grade to 6th grade. And some of those teachers, we do have a few that do overlap that have certified in both areas. And so they're teaching one curriculum in 5th grade and then turning around and teaching a completely different product in 6th grade. And then transition wise, you guys I don't think we need to explain transitions to you, but
The fewer transitions, the better.
yeah.
There've been some synergy to, with our seventh and eighth to have us 6, 7, 8 in the same
Yeah.
building, so the educational process can kind of just be steady through.
Yeah.
Well, and you think about relationships, I mean, I think we'd all agree we're in education for relationships and when you get them for 2 years in 5th, 6th grade, and then they go on to 7th, 8th, and you have them 2 years in 7th and 8th. That's, as far as building long-lasting relationships with kids, that's pretty difficult to do in 2 years and then they're out the door. One extra year in that process is very beneficial.
Anybody else have any more comments or questions? I think that administration's asking us to take some action on this evening as far as approving some of the additional meetings and the cost of that.
Mr. President, I move to direct leadership and the Boundary City Committee to pursue a K-5, 6-8 grade configuration, taking into consideration the impact on our middle schools and the number of elementary school buildings we have. We would like leadership and the committee to consider plans with our ideal capacity percentage between 75 to 85%. This ensures the district is functioning well fiscally and operation responsibility.
It's been moved and seconded that we allow our administration to move forward, looking into possible options of the K-5, 6, 7, 8 model. Is there any more discussion around that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, thank you, guys.
One more question.
Sorry.
Mr. President, I move to approve the new timeline that RSP and leadership has recommended, which adds an additional Board of Education presentation and 2 additional committee meetings with a total fiscal impact of $19,750. These additional meetings will provide RSP, the Boundary Committee, and leadership additional time to address boundary and reconfiguration needs of the district.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the new timeline. Is there any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
I will move on to new business. We got a curriculum council item. Suzette?
For you that don't know me, I'm Susan Rigby, and I'm the principal at Playmill. I'm also the curriculum council chair. So I'm here on behalf of the curriculum council. And we are asking the board to approve a sports medicine 2 course for the high school, and it would be a half credit elective option. We currently have sports medicine 1 and body systems anatomy, and this would be another class on that health science pathway. As far as staff and that would be the current teachers, so we won't have to add any teaching staff or anything. The one currently does sports medicine 1 would continue on with sports medicine 2. And it would be a second, sports medicine 1 would be the first requirement. So they would have to take that before sports medicine 2. So it would more than likely be a second semester course. So do you have any questions on that?
This is kind of on topic, but just curious, how many students do we have currently enrolled in sports medicine?
That's a really good question, and I'm not really sure. Drew, do you happen to know?
I think I know this. Currently, I think we're at capacity. So what we did is, there used to be a restriction on the kids that could be in sports medicine. And it was fairly restricted because of the pathway. We loosened up the restrictions on the kids that could be in there. And so what that did, our athletic trainers obviously are in charge of all this. So what that did is that kind of opened up the floodgates, and now Brittany Coolman, Ms. Coolman's done a great job of enticing kids into that program. So while it's growing her numbers in the actual class, it's also grown the number of trainers that we have helping with the number of student trainers. And so what they need is now they need an introductory level to get to that second level because we've increased the numbers so drastically. So this provides, I think she was teaching 2 sections of it before. This just provides the ability to have that introductory level class and then into that second sports medicine class. It's been a really positive thing for our kids to see, just the growth in sports medicine, and the growth into the medical pathway. 90% of those kids obviously aren't going to get involved in sports medicine as a career, but it does provide them that pathway to get involved in medicine and really a great hands-on learning experience for applying, simple things like learning how to tape an ankle. It sounds simple, but they're actually learning the reason you tape an ankle that way. So it's been great to see what Ruby and Patty have done with that.
President, I recommend the Board of Education, we consider and approve new course offering sports medicine 2 as a 0.5 credit elective option.
Moved and seconded, the Board of Education consider and approve the new course offering sports medicine 2 as a 0.5 credit elective option. Is there any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We'll move on to Board of Education, that's to consider a real land purchase. Dr. Mike Domingos.
Pastor Heck looks like the Godfather up there, doesn't he? He looks a little bit, he's looming down on us on that deal. Okay, what? Hang on a minute. Can y'all see that? Memo, real land issue purchase. You can see the memo. Property at 2401 East Mary Street, Garden City, Kansas. This land borders Garden City High School. Board asked us to, myself and Jennifer Cunningham, council, to look and investigate what could and would be done with the purchase of that land. Looking at that land, since it does border Garden City High School, we didn't buy that land earlier in our career, but we're looking to buy it now. We're approve as presented is what we're recommending. You can approve as presented, you can deny, or you can table. Price of the land is $660,000. Board of Education decides to purchase that property. There's a $5,000 earnest money down to complete the purchase, and that will happen within the month. And that's really about it. The contract is attached, so you can view that. And that's pretty much the long and short of the real land purchase at 2401 East Mary Street. Any questions on, or any comments or anything we need to, as far as get it approved, denied, or table the copy?
Is there any comments or questions? I had a question. Was there any, has the owner of the land given any easements?
He has not at this juncture. So I think that is correct when I say that there no easements have been allowed.
Comments, questions?
This is the land to the west.
West of Buffalo Lane. Yes, ma'am. All the way to the street, all the way to Mary, all the way back to our property line.
I guess I just kind of need a consensus from the board if we want to vote on this evening, or if we want to table this for future discussion.
Well, I guess I'm just comment that I would make is we're gonna get, the city's growing that way. That's the growth of the city. And all that property is about to be purchased. So I think this is kind of one of those deals that we either do it now or it's gonna get purchased from someone else. And if we want room to expand and grow or add things, anything to the high school, we're gonna be out of that ballgame if we don't do this. And I agree with the question that John asked. I would recommend that we vote on it, but I would add that stipulation in there just to confirm that there isn't been no easements given or anything from that. And if there has, then I would reject it, but I think we need to move now instead of just keep tabling. I know there's plans, the city's growing. I know that's, that's the comments that I have. Yes.
Council will be here shortly for our executive, so we can find out within 20 minutes.
Could we go, into executive session, and handle our executive session meetings, and then come out and readdress this tonight? And later, after the executive session, after we've talked to Jennifer? Okay.
I would be more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Table it till later in the meeting.
Yeah, that's what I'd like.
I need to make a motion to table it, Mr. Weeks.
What's that? Make a motion to table it? Okay. I make a motion that we table, decision on this, land purchase until after we've had a chance to, talk to legal counsel about easements associated with the property.
Seconded that we table the vote until we have a chance to talk to our attorney. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Move on to the board open discussion.
I'll start. I just, real quick, I love it when the students show up on Bernadine Sits. Had an opportunity to be in another meeting today with Mr. Hill, and we're doing great things there at Bernadine Sits, and him and his staff and the students are doing great, so I appreciate that.
That's the same thing that I was gonna say. I appreciate having those. You get to see some of the kids, you get to meet some of the principals, and you can see some commonality between the presentations. So the things that they're all doing that are the same, but then you can see the individualness of each school. And so it's kind of nice.
I will say also, I was able to go to the faculty meeting at Bernadine Sits, and that was, I think out of all of them, that was the most positive one I've ever been to. And all the teachers were very supportive of Mr. Hill, everything that he does.
I think it's great to see those kids here tonight too, the students, and you can see they take pride in what they're doing, and the presentation was well done, I thought, and Brad did a good job too. So it's just nice to have the kids here, have the students here and present to us.
Yeah, I'm glad we're going the direction we are, in regard to RSP and helping us with this, how this boundary study has evolved into great configuration and looking at other aspects of this. Now it's going to affect our district. I think it's better to take the extra time and, address the whole need and the whole issue, and not, feel rushed to try to make any set decision for this upcoming school year. So I think we're going down a good path there, and I appreciate all the, said we were at the meeting, the last site council meeting we had on it, and just a lot of really good, I think just about everybody, at least I could notice at every table was talking at some point. So people, good engagement there. And I think we're, it's a obviously big decision for our district and our students. And just think appreciate the time we're taking on it.
I would second Andy. I was going to thank everybody that serves on that committee and has given their time to that. I appreciate that. It's a big decision in front of our district, but I appreciate everyone being willing to volunteer and put time into that. I also wanted to say a couple of things about Bernadine Sitz. Our robotics team, there was 420 teams going to World out of 35,000. I think that's a pretty cool experience for those kids. Congratulations to them for winning state and getting the opportunity to go to Worlds and compete. I think that's good. And then I would say another thing is that, each school that we have in here that talks about nurturing kids' hearts and the social contracts and just sitting down and building those relationships with the students and the teachers. And it just seems like there's positive fruit coming out of that program. And I'm really, really impressed with the leadership and the students being engaged in that process and want to treat each other with respect and do what's expected of them. And you can see that in the referral levels. The negative referrals were down quite a bit, pretty substantially. So I think that's a good testament to that. So, Dr. Dominguez?
Absolutely. So on Bernadine Sitz, once again, just the building presentations, the 3E model, engagement, enrichment, empowerment, they're working on the whole child. And they would also say they want them another year on the front side or on the back side. Just 2 years is just too short, but the positive affirmations that Capturing Kids' Hearts does with them, with the students being a component of their leadership. They're like, want to do this, and then they get with the teacher and work on that is just phenomenal. So not just the academics, not the culture, the economics, but how's this going to affect me? And it is about their engagement. So it's really been a positive year for Bernadine Sitz. Thank you for you guys on the RSP, the ones on the committee, and for thanking the people that are donating their time for that, because it matters. It matters, if not now, when are we going to actually pull the trigger? And is it only related to fiduciary duty or certifications, or what does that really look like, or lowering the transition? Or are we trying to help everybody be successful? So that RSP boundary study reconfiguration is important, and it's going to last a long time. So we really want to take our time and do our due diligence, make sure we're doing what's best for the totality of the community. And when you have a community this large, 18 buildings plus, and 30,000, 40,000 community members, that's a lot to take on. So we got to be, know that we're doing it well. So that's all I have, but thank you. Good.
My apologies, Nathan.
Yep. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. I appreciate y'all letting me zoom in. Sorry I'm not able to be there, and I had a really great meeting this past week with it was the bilingual support group, I think, that's coming together for the system getting started back. And they were it was a good start and a good positive group there, and good things happening there. And so just very excited about the things that the school system is doing, and positive looking forward to the future.
Nathan? Yes, with that, we'll move into executive session.
Mr. President, can we do the J2 first?
Yes, sir.
And then she will be here for the.
Sure.
Mr. President, I move we go into executive session for
15 minutes?
15 minutes to discuss negotiations for the 2024-25 school year pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under COMA, beginning at 7:20 PM, and the open meeting will resume in the board meeting room at 7:35 PM. I would like to invite Dr. Dominguez, Josh Guyman, Drew Tone, Pauline Drees, and Jessica Noddard to join us in executive session.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we go into executive session for any more discussion? Favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?